You're listening to episode 27 of Liz's Healthy Table.
Looking for a healthy new way to feed your family without the hassle and hype? Welcome to Liz's Healthy Table, where your host, registered dietitian nutritionist Liz Weiss, serves up fresh and flavorful recipes with a tasty side of science, good nutrition, and fun. Are you and your family ready for some wholesome food that tastes great too? Don't change that dial. Your food adventure starts here.
Welcome, everyone, to season 2 of the podcast. I am going to jump right in today with a show all about fast family dinners. You want them, and I have them. This is the one recipe category I would say that you guys ask for the most. So to get us to the table with an organized plan and endless list of nutritious recipes and lots of ideas for getting your kids excited to actually be at the table with you are Amy Roskelley and Natalie Monson. They are the dynamic duo behind one of my favorite websites, Super Healthy Kids. So Amy and Natalie, they're business partners. They are neighbors. They're health educators. And they use their website to share their love of food and their love of health with the world. And when I say the world, I mean the world. They have a really huge audience. Amy has a bachelor's degree in health education, and Natalie is a registered dietitian, just like me. So, we all know that feeding kids healthy food can be a challenge. It can also be really rewarding. So don't forget that. And, Amy and Natalie, I really like their philosophy. They believe that you succeed every time you serve your kids healthy food, even if your kids don't eat it. Between them, Amy and Natalie have 7 children, so they know firsthand how difficult mealtime can be. They've been there, right? They've been in the trenches, and that's why when you go to their website, you're going to find lots of recipes, and I mean lots of recipes. They're colorful, they're creative, they're nourishing, and they're easy. So that's the key. They're easy. You can get them on the table quickly. That's the focus of our show, fast family dinners. So on the show, we've got lots of recipes to talk about, stories to tell, tips for enticing your kids to try new foods. We have news about Prepare, which is the new Super Healthy Kids meal planning and recipe app. We've got a giveaway to talk about for MyPlate Divided Kids Plate with Dairy Bowl and Parent Lesson Plan. It's a really cool tool that you can purchase on the Super Healthy Kids website, but we're giving one away. So if you head to the show notes page on lizshealthytable.com/podcast, we'll tell you how to enter the giveaway. US only, please. We'll give you links to all the recipes we talk about on the show today, including the most popular recipe this year on the Super Healthy Kids website. And we're going to give you all sorts of ways that you can connect with Amy and Natalie. Liz's Healthy Table is brought to you by the Parents on Demand Network. It's an app that you can download filled with parenting podcasts, including shows like the Informed Pregnancy podcast. It is hosted by Dr. Elliot Berlin. I just listened to it. It's an excellent show, so be sure to tune in and check it out. It's entertaining, informative. It features interviews with pregnancy and parenting experts. Couple of celebrities, new and expected parents are on the show, so you can learn all about it on the Parents on Demand app, or you can go to parentsondemand.com. So why don't we go ahead, since I'm getting hungry, and dig into today's show. Amy and Natalie, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Liz. Thanks for having us on your podcast. We're big fans.
Well, I am a big fan of yours too. And before we dig deep into today's show, can you just tell everybody a little bit about Super Healthy Kids? Because you are, I always say, it's your one-stop shop for recipes and meal plans. I mean, you have so much on your website. So tell everybody, give us kind of the big picture about SHK, as I like to call it.
Okay, well, at Super Healthy Kids, we really want to make it easy and fun and delicious for families to feed their kids more fruits and vegetables and just healthy meals altogether. So, our mission statement is that we're creating health and togetherness through food, and we really feel like it goes beyond the fruits and vegetables. There becomes just a part of your family that food can provide memories and learning experiences and eating together that I think can't be found in any other activity you do together with your family. So we really feel strongly that preparing recipes and serving them and feeding your kids should be done all together.
Good.
Whole family.
So cooking together, eating together, it's just a whole lifestyle.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell us about yourselves. Natalie, why don't you start? Where do you guys live and how many kids do you have? How old are they?
Okay, so we live in Utah, just south of Salt Lake City, and Amy and I are actually neighbors, which has been really fun over the years because as we're cooking, then, if I don't have an onion, I can just ask Amy and not feel guilty about it because it's for the business, So my kids, my youngest is 1.5, he'll be 2 this summer, and then my oldest is 9, and I have 4. So 9, almost 8, 4, and 1.
So you're busy. You're like deep into the trenches.
Yeah, I feel like actually I'm coming out of the trenches.
Okay.
Because my kids can, like my older girls, they can cook a lot of things for themselves. They get dressed, they can buckle. It's just, we all are sleeping through the night. We've made some big progress. 3 out of my 4 kids are potty trained. We're in a good space right now.
Life is good. Good stuff. And what about you, Amy? How old are your kids now?
So I have a 15-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 19-year-old. And when I started Super Healthy Kids, they were 4, 6, and 8 years old. So they've been with me through this whole journey. They used to be on my blog a lot because I would cook recipes and test it on them, and they would have to give me good feedback or sit there and pretend they like it a lot of times. And I would take their pictures. And anyway, it's just been part of our family for the last 10 years. But even though they resisted some foods, especially like the greens and some of your more traditional vegetables, I can honestly say that being consistent with providing and preparing those foods, that they're all 3, they'll eat anything now. In fact, they eat more than they should now because they just love food, salads and vegetables and everything in between.
I always say there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And one of the points I love to make to parents is that teaching your kids to learn to love a variety of new foods, especially fruits and vegetables, is a process. And don't beat up on yourselves if they don't love broccoli the first time they try it, because did your child potty train the first time you said, hey, go on the potty? Or did your child sleep through the night, Natalie, the first time you said, honeys, go back to sleep? It takes time. I know with Simon, who's now my 19-year-old, he's my younger of the 2. But with Simon, it took a long time to learn how to read, but he rode a bike, no problem. So, they're all different, right? It takes time. You have to be patient.
I love that example because we actually do feel like when we serve our kids a specific food and they reject it, that they must not like that food. Oh, that my kid doesn't like broccoli. And maybe you just really tried it one time. And so that's a perfect analogy to training and teaching them anything. We like to talk about training palates because we're just trying to get them to experience all the flavors of different foods and vegetables. And it's a process. I love that analogy.
So back in the day, it was probably 2010, Janice and I, when I had Meal Makeover Moms, we wrote a book called No Wine with Dinner, WHINE. And we had a chapter called Blogger's Best. And Amy and I were online friends at the time. So Meal Makeover Moms and Super Healthy Kids, we were really, I would say, some of the first food and nutrition blogs that were out there. So we reached out to Amy and we said, hey, do you want to contribute a recipe to No Wine with Dinner? And Amy contributed apple caramel salad. And Amy, this recipe, actually, I obviously made it because it's in our book, and I haven't made it in a long time, but it's 2 apples and shredded cabbage and pecans and Greek yogurt and a little brown sugar and vanilla extract. And you make this yummy apple salad. And then at the bottom of the recipe, we asked everybody to give a tip. Like, what's your best tip for getting kids to try new foods? And Amy, here's your tip from 2010.
Okay.
You said kids like to win, so give them the power. Get silly with their options, especially when they are young. And then you said you, so the parent says you. Susie, I need you to eat 100 bites of broccoli. Child, no, I'm only 2 years old. You, well, how many bites should a 2-year-old eat? Child, 2 bites. You, okay, fine, you win. Have 2 bites.
Oh, I do love my own tip.
That's a good one. I bet you forgot about that tip. It's been a while.
I completely forgot about that tip.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. You know, I have a closed podcast group. It's called Liz's Podcast Posse. It's on Facebook. And knowing you guys were coming on the show, I said to the posse, hey, who's got a question? Who out there has a question? And so I heard from quite a few people. And one of my listeners said, hey, are Amy and Natalie going to talk about picky eating? This is Carrie. She says, I want to hear about picky eating. And what's their take on picky eating? So I thought maybe you guys could weigh in on that. Is there such a thing really as picky eating?
So that's the first tip, stepping back and looking at maybe a bigger picture of why they wouldn't want to eat it.
And then what do you do, though, if your child, is, let's say, really selective and, you've tried sweet potatoes, you've tried broccoli. They just, I know personally I don't like broccoli rabe. It's like the one food I don't love. But, is it okay to say, okay, you don't love broccoli, but you like zucchini. Let's go for it. I think a lot of parents think their child is picky, but then they say to me, oh, my child loves apples and pears and grapes and carrots and celery. Sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, I would just say, too, that sometimes we think kids are picky, but when the circumstances are right, you'd be surprised at what they're willing to eat. And so what I mean by that is I've had parents say their child is picky, but when they're hungry enough, they actually are more adventurous in what they're eating. And even me personally, I think things taste better and I'm more willing to eat something the longer it's been since my last meal, or if I've just had a really hard workout or something like that. The hungrier they are, the more likely they're going to eat and be less selective about what they're eating.
Right.
The other thing I've seen a lot is just the way that kids mimic each other and even mimic their parents. And so I used to think my kids didn't like kiwi. And so when we had another neighbor child over who loved kiwi and was eating it, my son, who I never saw touch the thing, started eating it as well because he saw his friend eating it. And I think that there's huge power in that. I think that just the circumstances, and it's going to be different for every child. But like Natalie said, if you know what's holding them back from tasting or trying what you like, whether it's texture or maybe they're just really tired, take a step back and look at those things, but then also say, okay, in what circumstance is my child less picky? Is it when he's really hungry? Is it when we're at grandma's house? Is it when his friend's over? I think if you're more observant in that way and see where they decide they're going to eat something, then do more of that thing.
I like that tip. That makes sense. Hey, speaking of trying new foods, Amy, you were just in Australia with your family. And was there something you tried or ate in Australia that was like kind of weird and unusual? Like, did you try something new when you were there?
Okay, well, this is a really funny question. And any of your Australian listeners will probably feel like I'm like stereotyping the whole country. And I don't mean to do that, but I felt like everything we ate or ordered, even though it sounded common, like I'm talking hamburgers, sandwiches, pizza, like common foods, they put beets or green olives on everything.
No.
We were just so surprised to get a burger with beets and then pizza with green olives and like everything. And we just were like, what is it with these people and their beets and olives? It was on everything. I'm not exaggerating.
I have never heard of that.
Well, that's why I said I shouldn't stereotype the whole country. That was just our experience.
So the biggest question I get maybe more of a request I get from my listeners is that they are really hungry for fast family dinners. So these recipes that are fast, nutritious, easy, and that everybody will love. That always seems to be like the big thing. And people start to feel a little bit kind of burned out. Like Katie, who's one of my listeners, she feels like she's kind of, gone through this dinner repertoire, like the same thing over and over, and she's really getting tired of dinners. She wants to know how to kind of spice up tacos and meatball subs and even pancakes, like how to make them even better, make them healthier. So what sorts of ideas do you guys have, or even what are your favorite recipes when you walk in the door? It's been a busy week. What are those winning dinners that you can just pull together quickly that meet all those criteria that I just talked about?
Well, one thing, I think it's okay. I know it gets old and it gets boring, but I think it's okay to have a certain style of food that you go to over and over. So whether it's a pasta, maybe your family likes Italian and it's a pasta dish, or maybe it's a Mexican dish like tacos, or maybe it's breakfast foods for dinner. I think it's okay to be consistent within those so that you limit your choices, but then within those, you can change it up so much. For example, some of my go-to meals really are just like a pasta and chicken or a taco soup or a taco salad. And depending on the season, we change the vegetables out. So if it's spring, we'll have the asparagus. If it's summer, we have a lot of peppers. In the fall, we have carrots and broccoli. So it's just a matter of what season it is how we modify those recipes to keep them fresh and keep them different. And the other thing I would say is, if you really want to stay consistent, then just choose a day of the week to do that. So like a lot of people do Friday pizza night. There's so much variety in pizzas that you can have something new every Friday night for the whole year. And the reason that's so important for your kids is once they're familiar with that food, if they love pizza, then it's really a small step to get them to try new vegetables because it's something they're already familiar with, but they can have a different vegetable. And when those vegetables are fresh because it's in season, they're going to taste so much better anyway.
And then, of course, you have to top everything with green olives, and then you're good to go.
Green olives and beets.
That's right. And what about you, Natalie? If you walk in the door and you're just like, what is that winning recipe? Like, what would you turn to?
So I kind of have a little bit of the same philosophy as Amy. The way we do it is every night of the week has a theme. So Taco Tuesday, it's really cliche, but I think the reason it's cliche is because it really works well. So I know on Tuesdays, if I don't have anything planned, I'm going to make some kind of taco, whether, like Amy mentioned, it's taco salad, taco soup, regular tacos. And it's easy to get something on the table faster when I know the category. And I'll give you some specific recipes that we love to make on the fly. But my kids have learned that on Tuesdays we have tacos. And because of that, the picky eater factor has gone way down. And if you think about it, like as an adult, say like you were constantly going to a new restaurant every night and you hadn't tried a lot of things on the menu. Even as adults, I think a lot of us are less adventurous. Like when we eat out, a lot of times you order the same thing, right? Because it's safe. And so if you think about your kids in your own home, if you're constantly switching up the recipes all the time, they've never had anything you're making, they're going to be a little more hesitant. So if you can give them some consistency, they feel more comfortable. And then when there is a new food, then they're like, okay, I can try this because it's not so overwhelming. I'm not trying to eat something new I've never had every night. But a couple of our favorite recipes, we love stir fry. So I love, Costco has a great stir fry mix, and it's flash frozen. So, the nutrition is really peak in those vegetables that have been picked and then frozen. And you can change that up like so much with chicken or shrimp or even beef. And then, you can make a different sauce for it, and you could serve it with rice or pasta or quinoa or whatever. So stir fry is a really easy, quick, versatile meal that we like to make. Another thing we like to make, I'm trying to think.
What about pancakes? Because my listener Katie wanted to know even about pancakes. So I know I always love adding pumpkin puree just to kind of boost the nutrition. What would you do if you had pancake night?
So we don't usually have that for dinner, but I can speak to
How about brunch?
Breakfast.
Yeah, brunch or breakfast.
So what we like to do is kind of what Amy mentioned, is add seasonal. Like you mentioned, the pumpkin. We love doing berries, so we'll do a blueberry pancake, even a raspberry pancake in the spring or when berries start coming out. We love to do protein pancakes. You just add Greek yogurt and cottage cheese. And that'd be especially good for a dinner just because you want it to be a little bit more substantial. And we have probably 100 pancake recipes on our website because a great food for kids. And you can top them with things that add more nutrition or serve things alongside of it that add more nutrition. My biggest thing with pancakes is the protein. I always like to have protein with a meal. So making sure you have some protein with your pancakes, I think, is important. But it's literally, the variety is endless. And like pancakes and waffles, same batter, right? Just different shapes. So that's another way to mix it up too.
Now, I just saw the other day a pancake. It was a fast food commercial, but I've been wanting to try it at home. They called it the breakfast taco, but it was a pancake shell with the egg in the middle. And why not? That would just give you some protein like Natalie was wanting.
Oh, that's cute. You could pour the batter sort of in a circle like a donut shape and then crack the egg in the middle. Is that what you mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I want to see this on your website next week, ladies. Okay. Hey, speaking of your website, what is the most popular recipe ever on Super Healthy Kids? Is there such a thing?
So probably for the last year, I mean, it changes, but the last year, our most popular recipe, they're called egg cups. You make it in a muffin tin, and it's really easy. And I think the reason a lot of people like it is because you can make them ahead. I've made them ahead and frozen them, and then you can just reheat them. And you can put whatever vegetables you want in them. They're super delicious and really popular.
I have a recipe similar to that on my website where you chop up either Swiss chard, which is really nice this time of year, or baby spinach, saute that, and then that goes into like these little egg cups or egg muffins, I guess. So they're kind of muffin shaped, right? Because you make them in muffin tins.
Yep.
And they're fun for kids and they're healthy. So it's kind of got it all, right? You got the eggs for your protein and your choline, which is good for your brain, everybody. And you've got your veggies. I love that. I'll link to that in the show notes for sure.
Sounds good.
So let's play a game. Let's play Chopped. And I'm going to give you a mystery ingredient, and you tell me what are you going to do with that for dinner tonight. All right, let's start with you, Amy. I'm going to give you a can of black beans. You can drain them and rinse them if you want to. You don't have to. What are you going to make for dinner?
Okay, I have a quinoa black bean salad that is honestly my favorite. I would probably eat it for lunch and dinner every single day. So all it is cooked quinoa, black beans, a variety of whatever vegetables I have. Like usually it's some chopped bell peppers mixed in there and some feta cheese, and then the best part is drizzled with Italian dressing and then chilled in the fridge. It's so good. But the black beans are a big part of it. Black beans, quinoa, bell peppers, Italian, and feta.
Easy. Really easy. I love it. Now, is that on your website too, or is this something you just sort of make up as you go?
I actually don't think it is, but I should put it. There's some modified versions of it. We have some quinoa salads. Yeah, I think Natalie had a summer quinoa salad.
That sounds really good.
We'll look and send you the link if we can find it.
Yeah, if you can find it. If not, we're going to have to improvise. And all right, so Natalie, here is your mystery ingredient because we want fast family dinners. So you come home, you open your freezer, you have a bag of frozen shrimp. It's been peeled, it's been deveined, it's already pre-cooked. So you've got your bag. You know you want to get 2 seafood meals a week onto the table, ideally. So what are you going to do with your shrimp?
Okay, my kids love shrimp, and this is actually a meal that we make all the time. So the great thing about shrimp is it cooks so fast. I would just saute it in a little bit of avocado oil and garlic, and then while I'm doing that, I cook some pasta, and then once my shrimp is mostly cooked, I would throw in some pesto, some basil pesto, and cherry tomatoes, and you just kind of heat those together. And then you just serve that right over pasta, and it's so yummy. And the cherry tomatoes, when they heat up just a little bit, those flavors just really deepen. And when you like bite into the cherry tomato, it just bursts this delicious, sweet, but a little bit citric with the perfect amount of acid. And all combined, it's delicious. And literally, you can make it in 15 minutes or less.
You guys are like right in my world. I'm loving all these ideas. And throw something my way. Let's see how I do in the competition. Give me an ingredient. Let's see what I do with it.
Okay, sweet potato.
Ooh, okay. Oh, I have a great idea. Okay, so sweet potato. I'm going to take a sweet potato. I'm going to peel it. I'm going to dice it. And I'm going to toss it with some olive oil, salt, and pepper, and just roast it, maybe at 400, 425 for however long it takes to cook. So it might be 20 minutes or so. I'm going to toss halfway through. So now I have the makings of quesadillas. And so I'll open the fridge and I'll pull out some flour tortillas. And then I will create my tortillas or my quesadillas with the roasted sweet potato, a little bit of shredded cheese, maybe some all-natural barbecue sauce. I might have to take that can of beans from Amy and add some black beans. If I have cilantro, because I'm a cilantro lover, I will add some cilantro. And then I'll just sort of fold the quesadilla or the tortilla in half. And then I'll just saute that in a skillet till the cheese melts. And then they're just flat, right? I might cut them in each one in half or in thirds. And then we're going to have sweet potato quesadillas for dinner.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Okay, I'm going to play this game from now on with all of my guests because I actually really like it. This is fun.
That is fun.
So one of my other listeners, Emily, she says that she wants to know what are some techniques that you guys use for menu planning because she feels that there are so many steps when it comes to menu planning. I know this is a biggie for you guys. And actually, maybe we should back up. Before we get to Emily's question, hold that thought. I totally forgot to bring this up. You have a brand new app. I think it's pretty new and called Prepare. It's on your website. You could download it to your phone. Talk about Prepare because that will lead us into this conversation about meal planning and meal prepping, which is such a popular trend, but I really want to demystify it for Emily. So tell us about Prepare. How do you spell it? What is it? Talk about it.
Okay, so yes, it is our new app. It's spelled like the fruit, P-E-A-R, so prepare. And it basically takes you from the very start of thinking about what meal you want to make all the way through the end of grocery shopping and cooking that meal. So we have hundreds and hundreds of recipes on the app that you can search. You can also add your own recipes. You can, if it's something that's like been in your cookbook for years, you can add it in manually, or you can get recipes from around the web and put them in your customized recipe box. And this is one of my favorite parts. We call them collections. So you can kind of think of it as Pinterest boards for your recipes only, and it's super organized. You can share a collection with somebody else and then they can contribute. So in my personal recipe box, I have Monson family favorites. So my sister-in-laws and I, we have all of our recipes that we're always asking each other for in that collection. So that's kind of the recipe storage part. And then you move on to the meal planner. So we have a really high-tech but simple to use meal planner. Literally, you can plan a meal in a whole week of meals in 5 minutes. And I literally do this every single week. You just drag and drop whatever, drag and drop, right, Amy? Not on the app. Drag and drop on desktop, but on the app, it's just a couple clicks, and you just put your meals right in the meal planner, and then the rest is just done for you. So whatever meals you have in your meal planner, it auto-populates this really nicely organized grocery list for you. And we have a pantry feature, so, you know, a lot of recipes call for things you already have, like oregano, salt, pepper, flour, things like that. And so those ingredients, you can just click and put them in your pantry, so it does not include them in your grocery list. So when you take your grocery list to the store, it's actually just the things you need to buy.
Okay. So it really makes meal planning easy. I mean, I have a meal planner on my website that people can print off. It's a 7-day meal planner, but this really automates it. So you sit there, you've already got the recipes you love collected. You either drag them in or click them over to the meal planner, and then you've got your shopping list. It's kind of all there for you, right? It just seems to me like it makes it so easy.
Yeah, and you know, we've talked about a lot how everyone plans differently. And even if you're not the type of person who sits down on Sunday night and plans 7 days of dinners, you know, all those, you know, intense meal planning processes, most of us are meal planners and don't realize it. So even if you don't do that, a lot of times people will think like in the morning what they'll have for dinner that night. Or maybe you're thinking just in your mind, okay, this week I want these 2 meals at least because I saw them online and I want my family to try them. So we kind of are in different stages of planning. And even though you can like sit down and plan your meals with our app Prepare, sometimes when I'm just behind and I don't have a minute to sit down and do that, I'll just add 3 dinners to my meal plan so that I can have that grocery list, you know, on my way into the grocery store. I've literally done it on my way into the grocery store so that I know I'm going to make those 3 meals and suddenly the list is created for me rather than me going back and writing down which of the ingredients I need for that week. So I just think that if your parents really consider that they're all meal planners, we're just in different levels of intensity, I think.
And there's nothing more frustrating than going to the grocery store and not buying everything you need, and then you get home, and unless you live next door to Natalie or Amy, who you're going to borrow the onion from, it gets a little frustrating. So back to Emily then. So Emily is a working mom, and she finds it really overwhelming, this idea of meal planning. You got to check what you already have in the pantry. You got to go to the grocery store, all the cooking. So if, let's say, Emily has your app, but she doesn't want to have to figure out the meal plan, talk a little bit about how you guys actually help people. You do create meal plans for people who don't even want to go through that process, right?
Right. So the reason we created Prepare initially is we've had a meal planning subscription for years, but our customers wanted a way to have it digital, like in their pocket with them. So it's especially great for working moms, I guess for every mom that, you know, moms are just on the go. And so we now provide our meal plan, you know, through our app, so you can take it anywhere you want. And it's really easy to customize it for people who just want to cook like 3 or 4 dinners a week instead of 7. And so they can, you know, look at the meal plan that's planned for them for the week and in just a couple minutes say, okay, I'm going to make these 3 things, swipe everything else off, and I know it's all my grocery cart or my grocery list for that week. And so the pre-made meal plans are a really great option for a lot of people. We have a lot of subscribers who say that this pre-made option, you know, a lot of times are meals they wouldn't normally think about, and their kids have just really loved them. So it is a great way to meal plan is just to buy a pre-purchased meal plan.
Mm-hmm. And one thing we try to do with our meal plans too is, they're written by a dietitian, and we really consider that we're trying to get as much fruits and vegetables in at all the meals. And sometimes when we're left to our own for planning, like if we're going to plan pancakes or we're going to plan stir fry, sometimes we don't consider the side dishes or the vegetables or, all those things. It's easy to just think of your main dish without those veggies. So that's why our meal plans are especially helpful for parents who don't have time to plan, but also want to make sure their kids are getting all the nutrients they need in a day.
That's an important point. And I know you guys are big advocates of eating lots of fruits and veggies. And I will remind my listeners, too, that Amy and Natalie were on Jill Castle's podcast, The Nourished Child. It was a great, great episode. And I did listen to it to make sure that the things we talked about today were different and really built on what Amy and Natalie talked about on Jill's show. So I encourage you to listen to that episode, and I will share a link in the show notes page as well. So I want to ask you, Amy, a couple of years ago, I remember you did a Facebook Live. Oh, and then I have to tell you a funny story too, but you did a Facebook Live on meal prepping, not planning, but prepping. And Emily, I think you'll enjoy hearing about these tips. And that is that you don't have to prep like at 5 p.m. for dinner at 6 p.m. You could prep on Sunday, or you could prep the night before. And Amy, you use mason jars as like this invaluable tool to help you with meal prepping, getting things done ahead of time. So talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, one of the things that I continue to prep ahead of time the most, like on a weekend when I have some extra time, is our grains. So when I talked about that quinoa salad that I love, it's so nice to have your quinoa cooked already and ready to go, or your brown rice, or there's some grains we love that they just take a long time to cook. And so it makes sense to double or triple or even quadruple the amount of grains you're cooking at once, so that you do just cook it at once. And then I like to put them straight into a mason jar, because not only are they inexpensive and you can see through them so you know what is in there, but they last they have a nice seal on top, and they'll last all week in my fridge. And I like the long skinny ones because I can line it up on the door of my fridge and it doesn't take up any space inside. So the one thing I consistently prep ahead are those grains, and then we can add them to our meals all week long. Another thing we like to prep is the heartier vegetables. So we'll chop or cut carrots for easy snacking, or broccoli off of the crown, and all these things you can buy prepped now. Like the produce department, a lot of times will have your carrots already shredded or already chopped, or already broccoli's already chopped. So if you don't mind prepping them yourselves, or even better, getting your kids involved so you can teach them how to prep, then everyone's going to have a ready-to-go, easy-to-consume snacks, and it also makes dinner quicker and less mess. One huge bonus for prepping ahead of time is that you're only making the mess once. And then during the week, as you use those foods, you don't have to get out the knives and the cutting boards and the scraps of food and all that kind of stuff again. So we look at the week ahead. I see which meals are going to be able to be prepped ahead with, if I have to cut something, if I have to cook something. I know Natalie's really good at a couple of things. Tell them what you prep each week, Natalie.
So my prep, I like to think of it more as batch cooking. Like Amy said, you cook a whole bunch of something at once and then you have it. We do a lot of breakfast items. So I'll cook a whole bunch of waffles and freeze them. I always have muffins. We have a bran muffin on our website that's my favorite. So I always have bran muffins, and it makes a ton, the recipe. So it's really easy to cook and they freeze really nicely. I cook hard-boiled eggs every single week in my Instant Pot to have. And then recently what I've been doing is I'll batch cook like chicken tenders or chicken breasts, just bake them and then cut them up into cubes. And it's a really great source of protein to have that's easy. So my kids will even eat it for a snack with like something else, or you can sprinkle it on salad for dinner or put in a stir fry. So that's another thing I've really loved is batch cooking chicken and cutting it into little bite-sized cubes just to have in my fridge.
I did a podcast a few months ago with the authors of a book called From Freezer to Table, and it was all about batch cooking and freezer cooking, and it's so helpful to prep food ahead of time and pop it in the freezer, and then it makes your life so easy. So I love that idea. Thank you. So, hey, before I forget, the funny story I was going to tell you, Amy and Natalie. So this must have been a year, maybe 2 years ago now. I was doing a Facebook Live. This is when Facebook Live first sort of came on the scene. Everybody was doing Facebook Live. And I must have emailed you, Amy, to say, hey, I'm doing a Facebook Live later. Hop on, tune in. I'd love to, have you watch. Because you had just done one. I think your son was shooting it for you. And I said, oh, my son Simon's going to shoot this for me. So, Amy, you must have shared my Facebook Live as I was doing it. You shared it on the Super Healthy Kids Facebook page. Now you have like 3 million followers. And so now my Facebook Live is now live on your Facebook. And all of a sudden, as I'm doing the Facebook Live, I'm like, hey, everybody, I'm in Massachusetts today. Where are you? Tell me where you're from. And all of a sudden I look down at my computer and I can see like, boom, like an explosion of comments coming in. I'm in Australia. I'm in New Zealand. I'm in Tallahassee. I'm like, what is going on? And then question upon question and comment. I think there must have been like 1,000 comments. And I realized after that you had shared. So thank you. But it was so fun. I was like, oh my gosh, like the whole world, literally the whole world was watching.
Well, honestly, Liz, we just like to share great content. And so when you have great content, we just can't help but share it.
You had the best Facebook. Everyone listening, you have got to follow them on Facebook because you guys share videos. I mean, you have so much good content yourselves, but you're so generous in that you share other people's content. So thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So I want to start kind of wrapping things up because you guys are busy. You've got a lot of recipe testing to do now. But we're going to give away on the blog for 2 weeks. I've got a 2-week giveaway. We're going to give away MyPlate, your Divided Kids Plate with a dairy bowl and a parent lesson plan, this kit for parents. Can you just tell everybody what is this MyPlate Divided Kids Plate and why is this something everybody's going to want to win?
Okay, so the MyPlate several years ago, longer than several years ago, many years ago, they changed from the food guide pyramid to the concept of a balanced plate. And it's a very easy visual way to look at your plate and think, okay, what do I need to have on my plate? So this is a balanced meal. And the great thing about this plate, it's specifically for kids. And so when you make a meal and you serve it to them on this plate, if there's sections that are missing, they will totally remind you and be like, Mom, there's not a fruit on here. Mom, the protein section's empty. Mm-hmm. And so it's like an automatic way to teach your kids nutrition without having to, sit down and have a big lesson. The parent guide that comes with it just has some great activities you can do with the plate and ways to teach your kids, incorporating the plate, this idea of a balanced meal. And, as a side note, if you have all those elements on your plate, your child will be getting the nutrients they need without having to get into the nitty-gritties like, oh, you need more calcium, oh, you need more this. It's just basic food groups. And so it's a very simplified way to teach nutrition, and kids love it. They think it's so fun to have their own plate and remind you, it's even fun, like Amy was saying, to let them have a win. Like maybe you could purposely leave something out and then they'd say, Mom, there's no vegetables. And then you're like, oh, I totally forgot. Here's your broccoli.
What's wrong with you? You're a horrible mom. I need my vegetable. So we'll have one winner for that, and I'll put a picture of it on the show notes page, and then folks can enter for a chance to win.
Perfect.
So one question I love asking my guests is this. Do you have a favorite cookbook, something you turn to over and over again, whether it be for inspiration or something you love to cook with? And that it might change with the seasons. I don't know. But what's your go-to cookbook?
I'm going to have to go old school and just say my good old-fashioned Betty Crocker, like everything cookbook. And the reason this works for us is they have all of your standard type of recipes, your spaghetti, your hamburgers, your meatloaf, whatever is typical for dinner. But then I'll just take those recipes and modify them to make them healthier if I feel like I can. And it's always a home run every time.
So if you're doing like a meatloaf, you could shred a carrot and add some shredded carrot, or you can mash up some beans, add those. So it's kind of the sky's the limit, right? You're just kind of, you have the structure, you have the basics, and then you start to kind of adapt a little bit.
Yes, those are perfect for adapting. They're a perfect baseline recipe that you can build onto and modify and usually come out pretty good.
Mm-hmm. And how about you, Natalie?
Okay, this is 100% totally honest, even though it's going to seem like a plug. But I have not cracked open a cookbook in probably over a year because I honestly just use my recipe box that I've created in Prepare because it has every single recipe that I like to make, and it's totally just been personalized to me. So that's my cookbook that I use, and it's recipes from all over the web, from my different food bloggers, and recipes that are like my favorite family recipes. So that's really what I use now.
Okay, I'm going to give it to you, all right? It's not a plug. I believe you. You're very, very sincere, very sincere. So anything else you guys want to share before I let you get back to your wonderful lives in Utah? And I hope the weather's good, by the way, because the sun's peeking out right here in Boston, so we're all happy. But anything else you want to share?
Yeah, well, I would just probably end with saying we love to connect with our audience, and you know, we try to not always be so rigid about food. We love a variety of food. We're definitely in the moderate camp, but we know that kids, a lot of times, they're the ones who want to eat healthier. And so I feel like it's this nice like dance between giving your kids really delicious food and having it be healthy at the same time. And we love feedback from our audience who have tried our recipes so that they can say whether their kids liked it or not. And I think that all families can eat healthier and it doesn't have to taste like, quote, healthy food.
Mm-hmm. Anything from you? Any last thoughts, Natalie?
I would just say that a lot of times I think we put so much pressure on ourselves as parents surrounding healthy food that it becomes less enjoyable. And as soon as you can take a little bit of the pressure off and realize you're raising a family and really trying to create a culture, make it fun and enjoyable and less stress, then healthy eating becomes such a positive and happy thing in your life. So remove some of the stress and make it more adventurous and fun and let your kids get messy. My fourth child, we've just enjoyed him so much, even though he's literally the messiest eater ever. I've never seen a messier kid, but we've just kind of taken some of the stress out, and it's really made our food lives so enjoyable because it's fun and we just like being together around the dinner table.
I love those last thoughts, and I will just share this one story with you, and that is that my husband, Tim, grew up in England. His brother's name is Dick, but his name is really Simon. And the reason his nickname is Dick, which has nothing to do with being named Simon, is that when he was a baby, he was such a messy eater that his parents called him Dirty Dick. And the name stuck, and that is now his name.
Wow.
Isn't that funny? And
That's hilarious.
I love that story. So just when you were talking about your youngest, it reminded me of Dirty Dick. So there you go. Amy, Natalie, thank you so much for supporting me, Liz's Healthy Table, and for being such a great resource for families all across the world. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
you.
And for all of my listeners, please head on over to the show notes page, liz'shealthytable.com/podcast. All the resources from today's show, links to all the resources from Super Healthy Kids, info on that giveaway. If you love the show, I always encourage you to post a review on iTunes or Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, thanks for listening to Liz's Healthy Table.